Hello friends, good morning. Today we are going to discuss about a literary term poetic license. Very first when we come to this term and basically the term poet, that is a Latin word poeta, and poeta means maker, and the other one license, that is also the Latin basically, and licensia, that means permitted, and dealing these both terms terminologically in dictionary we point in meaning, that means poetic license in literature, a term that means literal meaning is in artistic way, artistic freedom to bend rules for the creativity. That is the simple word meaning. But when we try to define a poetic license, that means a poetic license means liberty or freedom in a artistic or a literary creation. The writer, poet, when as they require, as they fit their requirement for the purpose of matrical, for the purpose of structural, for the purpose of expression, impression, impact in the application of a literary approach. That means a poetic license. And in the viewpoint of Dryden, at 17th century, Dryden tried to define. And in the viewpoint of Dryden, when we come to poetic license, that means poetic license is defined in the viewpoint of Dryden, John Dryden, the liberty which poets have assumed to themselves in knowledge of speaking things in words which are beyond the serving of the prose. He also defines in this way. I generally say a learner either for the purpose of competition or academic in literature, as a student of literature, there should be the clear cut background so that the theme, the ideology, the viewpoint of the writer can be followed or can be taken. And as a matter of fact, today we discussing a poetic license. We have known the term poetic license and the term poeta and licensia. That means how importance of define. Now the question also arises to the learner, to the learner in literature. How many kinds and how poetic license work? We should know. That means when we have clearly taken the meaning that poetic license in literature in very short way, whenever poet regards the requirement to fit the creation for the purpose of pronunciation, syllable, rhyme, rhythm, expression, meaning, and does that is the poetic license. In literature, it is to be known, it is to be cleared. How many kinds? There are so many kinds of poetic license that poet has to do as per acquirement. That means very first grammatical, and a grammatical means here whenever a poet breaks, bends, grammatical, conventional rules, changes age per requirement, that is called grammatical, means poetic license in grammar. Other one, orthographical. Orthographical, also alternatively spelling. That means whenever a poet writer requires that a certain word is to be shortened, divinized, or enlarged for the purpose of pronunciation, for the purpose of a syllable, and dove, that is called orthographical or spelling under poetic license. Other one next, metrical. As a term metrical, that is very clear for the purpose of meter, the application of word. When poet changes, when poet bends as per the requirement and assumes as his own idea, his own approach, that is called here orthographical under poetic license. Next one, rhetorical. And under rhetorical, that means the expression, application of paradox, application of a symbol, application of a hyperbole, such a language under the poetic license. Then their symbol, application of a symbol come under the authority of the writer of the poet. That means around 17th, those since very first, very earlier continuousness of the literature. Several writers applied. But when we come to in Paradise Lost, in Paradise Lost also go through the versification under the poetic license, we also find there in book first poet writes, set on the breath. That means he starts the structure with the verb or structurally or grammatically that should be with the subject. Such applications and such bending, such changes, poetic license and here rhetorical. Semantic or logical. Semantic or logical also application of the other one structural. Structural also the bending in the structure. The structure may be the traditional grammar, conventional grammar, and also the application of the other structures later on in language, in the viewpoint of language, the morphology and the phonology. So maybe. And other one also that is to be understood by the learners, inventive. That means inventive means creative. Alternatively, archaism or coinaging. That means liberty and freedom in art or literature for the creative purpose. There, a poet free to apply and to create his own words so that the main purpose of the idea can be proceeded. Under these, all are the components of a poetic license and they should be dealt very carefully by the learner. If certain learner has gone through these all components under poetic license, can earnestly answer, can earnestly understand all the applications of such in a certain poetry. So today, when we come to the purpose of poetic license, very clear by the discussion that purpose of poetic license is to make a fit for the poet's idea, poet's grammatical approach, so that he can adjust and create and produce the creativity on his way. Later on, poetic license, though generally applied all poets, but after the 17th century, in the hands of as John Dryden defined, Shakespeare also, Wordsworth, and the moderns also. When we come Eliot also applies the archaic words and so. In all later on 17th century we find. So I understand, I think that it is very clear today's discussion in poetic license, under poetic license, we have gone through what does mean poetic license and what is the terminological meaning, what is the definition, what is the purpose, and how many kinds of poetic license tools are there to maintain and to take its meaning. It will be very beneficial or helpful to the students' academic or competitive purpose. I think it's very helpful. Thank you for watching. Meet you next video.